Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. Hey, I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas. If you celebrate Christmas, if you celebrate something else, I hope you had a good day doing that. If you celebrate nothing, I hope you had a good day celebrating nothing. And if you didn't, I hope you have a good day soon. Okay, today on the channel, we are returning to the world of Loom. And this is a text-based adventure game that's meant to kind of emulate old text-based PC games, but it does it on your tabletop. And this is a game created by Jay Merritt, who works under the name Shield Dice Studio. And we've covered quite a few things from Shield Dice Studio. I love Jay's stuff. And just full disclosure, he is a supporter of the channel on Patreon. And hey, if you want to support the channel coming into 2025, you can do that. I'll post a link below to the Dungeon Dive Patreon. But he's a supporter. I support him. And we have a really good relationship. I love Jay's stuff. It's so cool. And that is especially true with Loom. I think Loom is a very interesting game. So about a year ago, we did take a look at Loom, Portent of the Veil. And so this is the first volume of the Loom series. In this video, we're going to take a look at the second volume, and that is Loom, the Bells of Basin City. But before we dive into that game, I want to take a closer look at the lore book for Loom. I think that the world that Jay has created for this game is super interesting and unique and evocative, and it really just captures my imagination as much as any other game ever has. And I think the lore book is super interesting. And if you like things like Vermis, and you like these kinds of lore books that can be used as a setting for an RPG, and especially if you like Vermis because of the way that it kind of emulates a video game, a book about a video game, then you will really like the lore book for Loom. I think if this was printed or this was published by some kind of boutique publisher like Exalted Funeral or something, I think people would think of this in a much higher regard. This is just print on demand on DriveThruRPG, but it really does deserve just as much of a kind of boutique interest as Vermis does, because it's super interesting. So the world of Loom is very, very cool. And I love the way that it's all presented as a kind of throwback to 80s text adventure games that were played on the PC. As a matter of fact, when you first open up the lore book, you are presented with this computer keyboard that has some symbols on it. And there are some things that you can decipher in this book. And there are also some things that you can use that code to decipher in the other Loom books. So it creates this kind of cohesive world that is interesting to explore. And we have these different locations. So far, the two books that are released have focused on the two game books, have focused on the Vale of the Quintet Monasteries and Basin, the Basin and Basin City. And so that's the newest book here. And the Vale was the first book. And so we still have two major locations in this world. We have the Strath and the Highland of the Saints. And so I am hoping that we see expansions that dive deeper into both of those other locations. The thing that I like so much about Loom and the world is that it is, there's a lot of really kind of odd and dark religious overtones. And I always like when weird religious things are injected into my games, both science fiction and fantasy. I'm a huge fan of religious science fiction and religious-based fantasy. As a matter of fact, on my book channel, All Fiction is Fantasy, I recently reviewed a book by Daryl Schweitzer called We Are All Legends. And that is a tremendous work of religious-based fantasy. And it's one of the best works of fantasy I have ever read. As a matter of fact, after I released that video, I'm pretty sure that Jay went and bought the book. Actually, quite a few people bought the book from Daryl Schweitzer on eBay. And man, just a fantastic book. And this kind of reminds me of that world where you are these kind of heretical knights or heretical assassins working against a corrupt religious political system in this bizarre world. And so, yeah, it's kind of right in my wheelhouse. But in the lore book, we get this book can be used as a setting for a system agnostic setting for an RPG or a solo RPG. You have lots of information. We have our major factions here. We have the Highland Knights. We have the Trail Guards, the Defacer. So in the new volume, Bells of Basin City, we are playing as a Defacer. And I believe in Portent of the Veil, we were playing as a Trail Guard, I believe. But then we have the Drudge here. We have the Archivist. We have the Lore Keeper. And oh man, look at that art. It's so cool. It's so kind of early CGI style. Here we have our overview for our first book here, and that first area, the Vale of the Quintet Monasteries. We get all of our various factions in the Vale. We can roll up a random table of NPCs here, and interesting prominent NPCs, a D6 listing of prominent NPCs that we can interact with. We have some songs here, some various psalms of the Vale, and also a dungeon. So this book has really cool dungeons that you can explore. And it has some of those those odd sigils that you can decipher using that keyboard at the beginning of the game to kind of, at the beginning of the book, to kind of unlock secrets like you would in a video game. And here we get to our pages that cover the new area that we will be exploring in the new game, and that is the Basin. So we have a history of the Basin, the past and the present, the various factions that are in the Basin, some of our prominent NPCs, and then we have this Pilgrim's Door, and that's actually what we are questing for in this game. So in the game, in the new Loom game, we are trying to get to the Pilgrim's Door, and once you reach the Pilgrim's Door in that game, your game is over. You've won the game. You go on to your ending. But here you could continue to play in a kind of solo RPG way, and you could enter the Pilgrim's Door and do a little dungeon crawl. Very, very cool, very interesting. This is such a unique design, and I haven't really seen a game world and system and collection of materials that's really kind of focused on this style. We get into our Basin City, so when you are in the actual city, which we are in, we have NPCs that we can interact with in the city. Here is our celestial chart for all of the cosmology of the world. And then we move into two of the areas that haven't been fleshed out in a game book yet. So we have the Strath here, and that's kind of a desert area. And we can learn about all of the NPCs and factions in this area, and a huge dungeon here, the City of Songrid. And so this is a huge dungeon that you can explore. And then finally here we have the Highland of the Saints. And so this is yet another area that we are kind of, I guess, waiting for. I'm sure Jay's going to flesh this out and release at least one game book in each of these sections. And I think it would be really cool if there was kind of a big game book that was released after everything that kind of covered the entire world. Maybe a game book that pulls out, and then we can do a full exploration of the kind of the overland map of this world. And then the book goes into some other locations. We have some famed items of the Loom. We have some flora and potions, and then we have a bestiary here with all of the strengths and weaknesses of the various characters, hidden foes of the Loom, and then also some random encounters that you can roll up. So this is just a very useful book. Oh, I love this. I love this ad here for Gorge, the motion picture, The Adventures of Loth the Barbarian, now available on VHS. Super, super cool. And then also a list of the music that Jay listened to while he was creating this just really interesting tome of lore. So very cool. I love this. I love this kind of stuff. I like when a creator creates a world that has a rich and evocative backstory that makes me want to explore it while I'm playing the game. So now let's take a closer look at Loom. Now, if you're getting these books to play, I recommend getting the PDF and just printing them out and putting them in a binder or making your own spiral bound book just because it's easier. Jay did send me this printed copy of the Bells of Basin City, but I also bought the PDF just so I could print it out. And as a matter of fact, I put this game on my wish list on DriveThruRPG, and like 3 days later in my email, he had sent me a copy, and it arrived to my house, and so it was very serendipitous. It worked out. But for the bulk of this video, we will be using the printed PDF that I have made. Let's read the back of the book here. So, Loom, the Bells of Basin City. Welcome, Defacer. That's who you're playing as. A Defacer is kind of a supernatural, a witch assassin. So welcome, Defacer. The Cathedral of the Pallid Paupers lies far to the west, across the city main in the corrupt church district. Therein lies your prey, the unholy servant of the stars, the Empress herself. So your main goal in the Bells of Basin City is to infiltrate that dungeon and kill the Empress. And along the way, you are going to be evading these witch finders who are hunting you. You will be invading these monks that are trying to stop you. You have been convicted of a crime, and so you might have to face some of the consequences of the crimes you committed. And you are also trying to go on these assassination missions to assassinate some of the NPCs of Basin City. So the main game here is separated into 2 pages. We have your character sheet, and we have our map. And each game you will be starting down here in this tower. And in this game, since you are an assassin, you are traversing the rooftops of Basin City. And you are trying to make your way up here to this pilgrim's door where you can enter that location and assassinate the Empress. These towers here on the map, those are just blocking spaces. These pink spaces here, those are scrawl spaces, because as a defacer, you are kind of you tag, you paint graffiti, you paint these sigils, these signs of rebellion and of warning to the other people who are being oppressed by this religious institution that has corrupted this city. You will also keep track of these bells. As you fail different challenges, these bells will ring. If all 4 bells ever ring, you get captured. And then you have to go into kind of a little mini game to try to escape capture and get back onto your quest. These spaces here with the hands holding the daggers, those are your assassination targets. Now, you don't have to go on these assassination missions, but it probably will benefit you. So while this game is very similar to the first Veil, the Veil book, there are enough changes that I think it would interest people to know about those. So in the original game, you had to keep track of hit points, and one of the ways you could lose the game is for your character to die. Well, Basin City here, we don't have any hit points. Though you need to keep track of some items or some resources. It's kind of more of a resource management style adventure game. And so one of the resources you will keep track of are your uses of your Pagan's Key. And so your character has this dagger that can liquefy and take the shape of all kinds of different locks. We have standard locks, goblet locks, brazier locks, and crossed locks. And each one of those can be accessed 3 times on your adventure in order to help you make your progress. We also have our colorants, and so these are the graffiti, these are the tags, these are the magical sigils that we are painting throughout the city. And we have 3 different schools of color, and those will be associated with an affinity that you pick at the beginning of your game. And so my character, her affinity, she's Selena the Defacer. Her affinity is with the Ember Light, which is an E. And when you come to these pink spaces, you can scrawl your sigil, you can scrawl your mark, and then you kind of go through a little mini game to see which affinity you scrawled in that place. We also need to keep track of our warmth here. As your character is warmer, it's very cold. The city is damp and cold at night, and so you have to keep track of your warmth. As you get colder, things will start to go bad. As you get warmer, things are better. And then you also keep track of your city influence. As you do things that benefit the rebellion in the city, your city influence will grow. As you fail in those types of tasks, your city influence will fall. And these things here will help determine your end game, the prompt you read at the end of your game. So you can keep track of these by marking and erasing with a pencil on these squares. I'm finding it easier to keep track of things with dice. So my warmth, your warmth can go up to a 4 or down to a -3. I'm just keeping track of that with a D4. And if I have it over here to the right, I'm warm. If I have it over here to the left, I'm cold. Same with city influence. Right now I have a positive city influence of 1. So on the right, I'll keep my die over here on the right, my D8, because it can go up to 8 or down to -8. I'll just move the die around depending on where it is. That's just much easier for me to keep track of than erasing, because these things do change quite a bit. So as you start down here at your tower, you will keep a D6 to keep track of your map and where you are on your map. And each time you move to a new location, you draw a card from a deck, and then you do a kind of randomized Mad Lib word prompt thing where you're building your paragraph of your encounter. And at the end of the time that you've built that paragraph, you will have a challenge rating, and then you have to take 2 different tests at each location before you can move on. Every time you move on, you tick your D6 movement die down 1 pip. When it reaches a 1, you have to have a special encounter in the book, and then you reset. So right now I am at a 2. So because this game kind of emulates a text adventure game, you have a command list, and these are all of the prompts. These are the different ways that you can interact with the challenges and the encounters that you generate using the kind of random Mad Lib generation system. So the different commands you can take. You can attack a foe in combat. You can sneak or avoid a foe. You can survey the map for a viewpoint. You can traverse, climb a viewpoint. You can pick an entrance lock, or you can hide, or you can pick the entrance and hide. You can pick the entrance and burgle. You can also pickpocket an NPC. You can approach an NPC. You can watch and wait. You can flee the area, or you can do a rooftop run. We also have these special skills, and there are 3 different skills. And these skills are triggered when you have a successful scrawl or assassination action. And these can help you gain some of those resources. Another thing you're keeping track of is your overall challenge modifier. That can go from +3 to -3, and that will augment the overall challenge value of each challenge. Right now, my challenge modifier is at -2, so that's good. That means I'm going to subtract 2 from the challenge total, making it easier to overcome. All challenges are made by rolling 2d6 and adding the 2 numbers together, plus any modifiers that you might have on your command list, or any items that you've used that give you a modifier. And almost all of the items are one-use items, and they will usually give you a +1 or +2 to certain command things that you have chosen. At the beginning of the game, you will choose a difficulty level, and I've chosen the normal difficulty level for this character I'm playing now, and that allowed me to distribute 10 points to my various commands. So I chose to have a +2 for attacking foes, a +2 to survey, a +1 to traverse, a +2 to pick lock and burgle, a +2 to approach an NPC, and a +1 to a rooftop run. So the rules are all laid out here at the beginning of the game. I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you want to see a little more detail on the rules, watch my original video on Portent of the Veil, but we have all of our rules here. Here's where we pick our difficulty settings. So you can pick a novice, which is pagan, normal is witch, that's what I'm playing on now, or you can pick hard, and that is defacer. Then here we have our command list in the book, and here we have our words. So these are the random words that you will roll 2d6 on after you've drawn your card from your deck. And they also have this Loom deck of cards that you can buy from Drive-Thru Cards. you don't need this. You can use any standard playing deck of playing cards, I should say, with jokers. So you do need to make sure you have your jokers. But these are all the words for clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds. And so those will be plugged in as kind of keywords into the various paragraphs that we will generate while playing. And if you don't want to write in your book, you can also print out these cheat sheets where you can keep track of the words and the challenge rating for each paragraph. And then here we have our beginnings. I'll read a little bit about this. I'll read a little bit about our character here. So you are the defacer, a rogue witch, an assassin, and an artist. Your blood is tied to a lineage of the old regime. From the shadows you fight your battles, all for your cause against the Empress. By your blade shall her reign end. Though you have seen the faces of the gods, whilst within a trance caused by the deep magics, you worship none save for the colorant. They, the demiurge of Loom, are false idols, nothing more than clawing entities of the void. They are the sparrow or the bat to you, winged and from places beyond your reach, yet nothing more than creatures with wants and needs. And so they call you pagan. You bow only to the warmth and to the drawing of the essence of the world, the very fabric of reality and the unexplainable colors of it all. Do your bidding. One thing that Jay totally nails is the theme, the world, the setting, and his writing is fantastic. It's some of the most just evocative and interesting writing I've read in a game like this. It kind of has that purple prose style of something like Clark Ashton Smith or H.P. Lovecraft. It's very verbose, it's very wordy, and I know some people don't like that, but for me, I think it fits this world so well. So when you create your character, you will pick one of the 3 different affinities for your scrawls: natural world, the old regime, or Ember Light. I chose Ember Light. You will choose a crime that your character is wanted for: murder, theft, arson, or heresy. I chose heresy. You will pick your celestial boon between witches, Tanari, Chroma Nebula, and Ember Sphere. So I chose Chroma Nebula. Your celestial boon, whenever you are able to see the sky in the game, and that's a prompt that you roll on, there is a chance that your celestial boon will trigger and you will get a +2 bonus to that challenge. You will get a basic loadout. At the beginning of this game, I chose to be a climber, so I started with a rope and some worn boot spikes. Each one of those will give you a bonus depending on the command list, the choice that you make on your command list to overcome a challenge. I actually ended up using my rope in my very first challenge. This game started off pretty wild. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we get into all of our various our paragraphs that we will generate for our challenges. And those are divided between the various suits and numbers and face cards of the deck of cards. When you get captured, when all 4 of those bells ring, then you turn to this page here and you will read about the way you've been captured and how to overcome being captured, how to escape. At the end of the game, you will add up some values, and then you will read the prompt that corresponds to that to come up with your journey's end, as well as your epilogue and how your character ends up. And then we also have here our various items and our legacy items. Now, this is really cool. When you die, you have a chance of coming up with one of these legacy items that your next character can take into their adventure. I love this. I like to see this in games, this kind of rogue legacy style. Persistence from one run to the next is something I always appreciate. When we go down to a 1 on our movement die, then we have to face off against the Hammers of the Eutherin. And these are monks who are trying to stymie your progress. And so this is kind of a little flowchart mini game that you play through to overcome that challenge. And then when we get to those pink magic spots where we can put our scrawl, we do this little mini game. And when we get to those assassin spots and we want to do those assassination missions, we go to the assassinate target. We generate our target, where they are, what's going on. And then we have our little assassination challenge, and depending on the outcome, certain things will trigger. There are a couple items that you can get, and those are shroom husks and pus bulbs. If you get one of each of those, you can create poison, and you can hold up to 4 vials of poison. And that poison can be used to help you when you do your assassination prompts. And it looks like that's about it. So here's my other loom. There's the Portent of the Veil. So in this game so far, let's see, the first card I drew was a Joker. And so when you draw the Joker, that's when your character is being hunted by these witch finders, I think. No, the Joker is when you are being plagued by your crime. Let me find the Joker page here. And so that was the very first thing that I drew as my Joker. Let's see, that is on page 27 here. Let me find that, 27. Did that page not print? Oh no, there it is. Okay, so yeah, so the Jokers. So I drew a Joker, and depending on which crime you are convicted of, you have to do this little mini game. So mine was heresy. So the shambling figures of an old seer appears. She wanders over to you, then cries, "Heretic!" She sees within you, "Repent!" She begs, now upon her knees. Some strange sorcery threatens your pagan beliefs. You roll a d6, then you have to do what it says, and then you can kind of choose how you want to overcome that. The next thing I drew was an ace, and the aces are the witch finders. These are kind of little mini bosses that are chasing after you. And so I drew an ace of diamonds, and that was the Inquisitor Idalia. So I had to choose how to overcome, how to defeat that Inquisitor. The next thing I drew was a 10 of hearts, which was kind of a basic challenge I had to overcome. And then we also had the Jack of diamonds, and then I drew another ace, and so I had the ace of clubs. And so then I had to face off against the Flesh Finder Felix. Okay, but right now I am down here in this square here, just off camera. I'm going to move 1 square north here, and I will tick that down to a 1. Now I think as soon as I tick down to a 1, I have to face off against one of those monks with the hammers of the Lutheran. Let me double check that real quick. When your movement die reaches 1, roll on the Hammer of Eutherin page before drawing a card for that area. Okay, I'm going to turn to the Hammer of Eutherin page in the book here so I can hold it a little closer to me. And I can get a little bit of a better read on this because this is a little complex. It's a little kind of mini game here. Okay, so the Hammer of Eutherin. So we have to flee from the hammer, begin the chase. Though he wields one, it is in fact he who is the very hammer of the Empress, and of her long-dead lover, the sorcerer Eutherin. Broad and pale as snow, he lumbers about the city, though slow. He somehow manages to track his prey precisely. Yeah, kind of like Jason or Michael Myers there. Slow and steady wins the slasher race, right? He has found you. Hooded, he comes forth. Wordless, he speaks of your death. How does this monstrosity know of your plans? No matter now, for you see him approaching, stepping about the streets of the city below. Run, defacer, for your might is no use here. So we have to go through this little mini game and we have to run. We have to begin to run. Has the hammer already spotted you? So we roll a d6. A 1, 2, a 3 is a no. So yes, he has already spotted me. So we will go down to this purple prompt here. His glassy eyes watch as you run. A +1 combat modifier. Okay, so my combat modifier was at -2, so it goes up 1. So now I'm up to a -1 here. Okay, each time you look, he is still present, following below. Is the night colder now? Let's see. 5 is a yes. Okay, this is bad. The air shreds skin with its frost. -1 warmth. Okay, my warmth right now is +1, so I'm going to remove my D4, so now I know that my warmth is at 0. Okay, 5. Somehow he appears before you like a giant specter. You climb into a belfry and hide in shadow. Still he advances. He can see you. He raises the hammer. Does it strike true? 6. Ah, my God, these yeses. I'm getting demolished by this hammer here. Yes. You are knocked to the ground, gasping. His eyes flicker humanly. Does he still attack? 4. Yes. Oh my God. Okay. The hammer strikes not you, but the bell. Do other foes hear its ring? This is a rating of 6. Okay, so I need to have a challenge rating of 6 or higher. And I have a -1 challenge rating right now. So I have to get a 5 or higher and a 6. Okay, I passed that. So I don't fail. So as a success, I run on. If I failed that, I would have to mark one of those 4 bells, and that could trigger me being captured. Okay, so now we do that. We've dodged the hammer. The hammer doesn't strike the bell. We leap from the belfry and hear his childlike weeping begin. Creepy. Okay, do you land safely? Now I'll roll a no. Yep, okay, no, yeah, see, okay. Oh boy, luck. Okay, so you crash through a lower wooden rooftop, injuring yourself, +1 combat modifier. Okay, so now my combat modifier is 0. Man, I'm getting my butt kicked on this encounter with the Hammer of the Eutherin. And rest. If you run, let's see, yep, so we did that, 10, 11. Okay, you run for a time, now convinced that you are free of that towering horror. You kneel and rest. Does any instinct give cause to flee this area? 3, no. The cosmos dulls as you trudge away, thinking of what is to come. Okay, so that was our encounter with the Eutherin. That is super cool. I love that little kind of flowchart mini game. I think it's really interesting and super fun and fast and just so thematic. Okay, but now we need to draw a card for our prompt. And let's see what we draw here. Okay, a 3 of clubs. So let's turn to the 3 of clubs. I am again going to grab my book here just so I can hold it closer to my face. And 3 of clubs, that is on page 15. Okay, so the 3 of clubs, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different keywords that we have to plug in. We have a D, a B, a C, and an A. So I'm going to grab my little cheat sheet here that I printed out from the book. We are at clubs, and so I will also grab here so I can keep track of the keywords that I have written here. So I'll do that over here. Okay, so what did I say? Our first keyword is a D. Okay, so I'll roll 2d6, and we have an 11 on D, and a D is a smell. So we have a burning pyres, and that has a challenge rating of 3. Okay, so 3 of clubs here. We have D, I have burning pyres. That had a challenge rating of 3. Let's see, burning pyres, 3. Yep, okay, so then we have, let's see, that was D, and then we have, let's see, we have a B. So let me roll my dice here and see what the B is. 10. Okay, so B here is a rooftop, and a 10, it's rain-soaked. So I'll write rain-soaked, and that also has a challenge rating of 3. Next up, we have C, and C is sounds. Okay, 7. 7 on sounds is quiet mutterings with a challenge rating of 2. Quiet mutterings with a challenge rating of 2. And finally, we have A, and A is a description. So there are no foes, so we don't need to have combat in this paragraph. And our description is a 5, and that is ashen, and that is a challenge rating of 1. So then I consult all of my challenge ratings for burning pyres, for rain-soaked, for quiet mutterings, and ashen. So we have 3, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have to do 2 prompts in order to overcome this paragraph. I have to do 2 encounters. But let's read our paragraph now, plugging in our Mad Lib words. So the stench of burning pyres hangs thickly here, filling your throat and caressing your tongue. You move across rain-soaked rooftops like a black cat, hugging the icy shadows as you proceed. Something squelches beneath your feet, and you notice in the moonlight that this rooftop is lined with flesh, like canvas awnings set out to dry. Oh my God, that's so cool. Okay, from what beast it was ripped, you do not know, But you notice a face within the folds, watching you outwardly with hollow eyes. You freeze, the sound of quiet mutterings beginning. What madness lurks here above the city streets so ashen? So we have a challenge rating of 9. So now we have to interact with this in 2 different ways using our command list. I think that's also a change from Portents of the Veil. I think you only had to do 1 interaction, but in this game you have to do 2. Because we don't have a foe here, we don't have to enter combat. There are some, perhaps a character, so maybe we can approach an NPC here. We could watch and wait. Watching and waiting, that will lower your combat, your challenge modifier, but you will have to lose a couple points of warmth. We can do a rooftop run. Let's see here. Let's just traverse. So let's do a traversal here. We will keep going. We will try to traverse these this fleshy canvas rooftop. So I get a +1 to my roll. I have a challenge modifier of 0, so I have to get an 8 or higher. Now I could use, if I were to do a torch, I could use my torch. My torch would give me a bonus. My torch that I have also gives me some warmth. I don't think I'll use my torch right now. I will just try to traverse this rooftop area that's covered with canvas made of flesh. So an 8 or higher and a 5. Okay, so no, I failed. So now I need to see the outcome of my failure. That's a 6. Nearly falling several times, you reach the viewpoint, but it seems the noise attracted a guard. An alarm bell rings in the night. Okay, interesting. So I do have to check off one of my bells. So now I have 2 bells that are rung, 2 more bells, and I will get captured. I think now I'm going to do a survey. I've reached the viewpoint. I'll make a survey. This will give me a +2. And so let's see, a 9 or higher, I can add 2 here, or I guess a 7 or higher with that bonus. And man, I'm just rolling. So have I had 1 successful roll in this game? No, so we fail that, a 2. While carelessly studying a new viewpoint within the district, you are spotted from a distant rooftop and another bell rings out. Oh man, 1 more bell and I am captured. But yeah, so then of course, after we have done that, we would reset our die here. And now I can move here, here, or here. I can do one of the scrawls. Let's do that. Let's do a little scrawling mini game before we call it for this video. So I will move north here to this scrawl. Okay, and then we will turn to our scrawl page. Let me find the scrawls here. What page is that on scrawls? That is on 42. Okay, so 42, use the colorant. Your route brings you to a location marked for magic. You grin beneath the light of the dual moons, feeling the colorant flowing through you. You shall leave a scrawl here to sign your passage and strike courage in the hearts of your kin and fear into the hearts of your foe. Death to the Empress. Roll a d6. The location type dictates the scrawl starting point. Or we can choose to spend a point of warmth to choose our starting point. And we can choose our starting point to try to use a colorant that we have an affinity with. I am not going to choose to do that. I'm going to roll for random, and that is 4. Okay, 4. The Holy Observatory, start on 3. And this is our scrawl. This is the scrawl of the Ember Light. So this is what I have affinity with. So the bricks of the building begin to glow red as the colorant burns. Your fingers are coated in molten glass. I have to roll a d6 here. A 5. Okay, so we finished the scrawl. Go down. Like the blood of some cosmic beast, it glows red, then orange. All who are deemed pagan shall be called to ruin this place. Yes, that's so metal. I love it. Okay, so we have created a scrawl of Ember Light. And so I'm going to add 1d6 down here to my scrawl of Ember Light. You can do each scrawl 3 times. If you ever kind of come to a point where you try to complete the same scrawl for the 4th time, you automatically fail. So sometimes you will want to spend a point of warmth to determine which scrawl you are completing. And now we get a +1 to our city influence. So my city influence goes up to a +2. Very nice. I am I am encouraging my fellow pagans to rise up against the corrupt empress, and +1 of our pagan's keys. So that means I can tick this down, my pagan's key for my standard locks. I gain a new use of that. So I can tick that down to 1, meaning I have 2 uses of that standard lock pick rather than 1. I got that because my scrawl matched the affinity, and I get to choose a skill to trigger. And so my skills here are here, and I can choose one of these 3 skills to trigger. And then each one of those will trigger on a roll of a 6 or higher, and then you will get the benefit of that. So yeah, super cool game. I love this Loom world. I love the lore. I like the way that you generate paragraphs using a kind of random Mad Lib generation system. I like the different characters. I like how so far each of the 2 main games, the Bells of Basin City and Port of the Vale, is different enough to feel like there is, well, they have enough differences to feel different. I guess that's how I should say that. But yeah, they're not exactly the same. It's not just a swap of text. There are different things going on in each of these games to give them a little bit of a different feel. So it doesn't just feel like you're playing with a palette swap. You know, you're not just playing the purple version instead of the green version or something like that. There's enough going on in each one of these where I think if you're a fan of one, you will definitely want the other, and you won't feel like you're just buying a super similar thing. So I'm really hoping that Jay at Shield Dice continues to develop this world. I would love to see a book for each of the other 2 major areas, and then maybe a kind of overland adventure version, which I think would be super, super cool. So all right, you guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this look at Loom Bells of Basin City and the Loom lore book. We will talk to you later. Bye-bye.